Today, we're demystifying the power of AI in event marketing and strategy with our guest that has been at the forefront of leveraging artificial intelligence to change how events are designed, marketed, and executed. So whether you're an event professional, you're a marketer, you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever it is that you are and you like to learn more about how you can use AI and leverage AI to shape the future of your business and the events that you work on, well, guess what? This episode is for you.
Welcome to the Events Demystified podcast, where we demystify the world of in-person, virtual, and hybrid events, AV production, and AI technology by sharing practical tips, tricks, and strategies to help your event succeed. This podcast is brought to you by Trefan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency that caters to event professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We specialize in AV and AI education, integration, automation, and implementation, all based on our Fit for Events framework, which focuses on futuristic AV production, innovative AI technology, thriving audiences, and empowering behind-the-scenes teams. And I'm your host, Anka Platon Trefan, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in event production, event management, and now AI technologies and cybersecurity.
Welcome, friends, to another episode of the EventsDemystified podcast. I'm your host, Anka Platon Trefan, and today I'm excited to introduce you to a new guest, David Hirschfeld, a seasoned technology strategist and the founder of Strategist, a company specializing in custom software solutions. David has spent over 30 years harnessing technology to drive innovation in event marketing and strategy. As an advocate for integrating artificial intelligence into event planning, he has developed tools and methodologies that enhance the attendee engagement, streamline operations, and deliver measurable ROI for clients. David is also the creator of Launch First Method, an approach designed to help startups reduce risk and cost while scaling successfully. His expertise spans AI-driven analytics, predictive modeling, and personalized marketing strategies, making him a pioneer in helping businesses adapt to an ever-changing digital landscape. And with that, it is my great pleasure to welcome David to the show. David, welcome to the show. As you can see, I am definitely struggling with my voice today. And you were telling me before we started that that's okay because you've also been running on very little sleep. So I think we make a perfect pair today.
Oh, yeah. I think I've had a total of 4 or 5 hours sleep in the last 3 days total. And
I've been like having this raspy voice that comes from this cold that I was dealing with. So we're gonna make the best of our time together because there's so much to be talked about today. And I don't want to miss this opportunity, knowing the experience and the expertise that you bring to the conversation. So, hey, let's do our best. And for everyone that's tuning in, it's okay to sometimes show up like it's not your best self. And that's okay, David. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, what is something that you feel from a technology innovation point of view that the 2025 event space would be most excited about?
Well, I'm going to talk from 2 different perspectives. One that is about what's really exciting, but the second is going to be what's going to really move the needle for most people. I'll start with the exciting stuff. I mean, the stuff that we have with video creation and image creation and content creation is just crazy. Sora's OpenAI's new video generation system, where you give it a prompt and it literally creates a video pixel by pixel. That's pretty exciting. And then, of course, Google comes out like at the exact same time with their video FX functionality. And that's I think it's even better than Sora.
I think so too.
It's just crazy how realistic the stuff that they're producing is on some very simple prompts, just like 2 sentences. And you get this thing that you can't even imagine how they could have possibly created it. And I've been in software development world for over 35 years, and I'm blown away on a daily basis by all of the changes that are happening. So those are the really exciting things related to content creation, related to if you're going to attend a show, organizing yourself around how you're going to consume the show in a really meaningful way by having AI help you put together all this planning and redo the research for you and figure out it so that you've got a map, a roadmap of exactly how to make a show really effective for you. And for an event planner, doing that for different personas in advance and saying, look, if you're this persona, if you're that persona, if you're that persona, and then you just send out, here's some ideas on how you might really enjoy the show, and you just send it out to the people that would care about that, and people would really appreciate that and just really create more engagement, right? These are the exciting things.
I like that. And then the other perspective, the business case.
Actually, I'm going to throw one more in. So now we've
Yes.
also got, like with the glasses that just came out that will real-time translate. What I really want is for them to have a real-time translate voice while
So
you're sitting
wait a
there.
second. Is that the Meta glasses? Because so I've got
Yeah,
the Meta glasses and I felt like when I got them for Christmas and I was so excited and I kind of felt like they missed on so many things. So I'm not sure if they're releasing a new update, but like having something like that, what you just mentioned, I'm like so useful, like so helpful. Like I don't see the benefit right now of all the things that I thought I was getting when I was purchasing this pair of smart glasses.
right. No, Google AR glasses. They just came out with the Meta glasses. I don't think that they're there. And the Google AR glasses are just right on the verge of being really pretty exceptional. Because while you're talking to somebody, you can have it translate and you can see in text in your glasses without it obscuring your vision what they're saying in your language. What I really want is for it to do the voice translation using earbuds while you're also talking.
Yeah.
And then to give you my vision is you're wearing glasses and you walk up to somebody at an event and it's giving you little pop-ups about that person so
Yeah,
that you're
like
getting
LinkedIn profile, tidbits of what they're interested in, like something that's really useful.
right, something they recently posted, or even who they are, right?
Yeah.
Like name, right? Their name and something that is engaging about them that you can walk up and say, hey, and then there's that engaging thing, right? And maybe even a little video up in the corner of something that they had posted on Instagram and
Yeah.
comment on that. And all of a sudden, a person feels like they've been seen. It's not real in a sense, but in another sense, it kind of is because you're being drawn into the things that matter to that person. And now you're starting to engage them on a level that makes them feel like they want to engage with you.
I
And
mean, the reality is we all
ours is
post so much on content online, right? So
right,
unless you don't post anything publicly and you're a closed book, there's a
mm,
lot of information out there that you could make relevant to someone that
right,
wants to connect with you or just meet you on a level field. And you're right, like I would find something about David that otherwise probably I wouldn't have because I'm not following David on every single post on Instagram, right? But
right.
here is a tidbit of information. I can connect with David and say, hey, David, I really like your post about XYZ. And
Mhm.
that makes us relatable. You're like, oh, I can't believe they
Yeah,
actually cared enough to
right.
look into that.
Yeah, yeah. Before they knew you were wearing the glasses, they go, oh, really? You read that article? And then all of a sudden they feel important and like they matter. Right. And that's all we all want to feel. Right. And that's a conversation starter that then will become a natural conversation after that. Right. It's the
Yeah.
conversation starters are the tough thing, especially if it's somebody you really want to meet and you think it's important, might move the needle for your business or for you personally or for whatever your agenda is, whatever the event's about. And you'd like to meet somebody. But a lot of times, depending on your personality, you might be the type of person just walks up to anybody anywhere and just says hi, put your hand out and just start talking. Most people are not quite like that.
Yeah.
They're not it, right? So something to just give you that little bridge from I don't know you to now you feel like you might want to engage with me because once you're there, then the conversation is very easy to find a kind of a path and a pattern
Yeah.
to that conversation. So those are the kind of tools that we need. The translation one is a really cool one, but more important to me is that context tool, the context AI.
Totally. I
You
love
know,
that. We talk about matchmaking so much, and
Yeah,
AI is becoming this new trendy tool. Honestly, it's not so new and it's not so trendy because it's been around. Machine learning has been around, and
yeah,
machine learning has been used in matchmaking before, right? So the context that you talk about, probably that's what we call now this AI matchmaking functionality and feature that now every event platform out there wants to incorporate as the new feature in 2025. And this was something that at IMS, I'm having all these conversations with event technology providers, and I'm like, that is not new. Why is that on your roadmap in 2025 when it should have been on the roadmap like 3 years ago, like
yeah.
5 years
Well,
ago?
5 years ago, right? Exactly. Now it has changed. What AI is capable of today, and probably since 2019, it's been capable of, is dramatically different than what it was before that.
Yeah.
And that's with the advent of large language models, and then the ability to augment a large language model with, I'm a software developer, so now I'm starting to get a little technical. I'll try not to. So basically, you have this large language model that knows everything about everything, but it's not an expert at any one thing. So it can't deeply reason on any one topic because it's an expert at that thing, right? There are some things that it's really very good at, but then there's other things that it requires a much deeper knowledge for it to really be truly good at it. So we augment it with our own machine learning model. So we have a machine learning model. We say to our large language model, we want you to be an expert at this thing and only talk about the thing that's, so now it's going to inform the large language model. The large language model can add additional context because it knows so much about so many things and can actually speak to us in a language that we understand. And so that's what's really dramatically different than prior to 2019. And even 2019 was really before. In December 2021, when ChatGPT came out, which made this all consumable to everybody, the beginning of it, right? Prior to that, you could go into OpenAI, which I did for about a year before that, working with OpenAI and using it to do all kinds of stuff, content creation. And oh, yeah, so for event planning, all that content you have to create, that's like one of the biggest jobs, right? When you're doing event planning, besides all the coordination, just all the content you have to prepare and create, and you're never happy with it. You're afraid to delegate that. Now all of a sudden, that
And the
becomes a very
emails
easy,
back and forth that are being sent just on one copy alone. I mean, oh my goodness, the
right,
time that we saved, hopefully, with that.
right, exactly. And to have it summarized for you in a minute. Or
Yeah.
I'm assuming, I don't know if you guys have talked on your show before about Notebook LM, which is
Yes.
Google's. Okay. So that's a super powerful tool.
I
It
actually
does some
have an
really,
entire series, just for your knowledge, that
yeah,
is called AI Talks, and it releases in between each one of those in person conversations with humans. And it releases a new episode between the two AI hosts on the topic that I choose, which a lot of those topics actually have been fed from hundreds of content and blog posts that I have written on various topics. And now I'm
right.
just turning it into 8-10 minute AI episodes that I'm like, it's content.
It's content and it's kind of edgy and it's weirdly insightful the
It
way that they,
is.
in fact, I've used it to evaluate websites and have the two talk about what they found on the website and what, and their opinion. And very often what you hear is messaging that's actually in the website that they surface in a very insightful, obvious way that you didn't realize you were saying on the website. And you go back in, I really am saying that, and then it's a great feedback. But the thing about Notebook LM is you can build your own little private expert on any particular topic by uploading content and adding links
Mhm.
to a particular notebook. So, like if you want to, for planning an event, for planning to go to one, or planning to give one, for trying to organize all your attention and their personas and trying to do analytics on, you just upload the stuff to Notebook LM and ask it to then produce output for you, planning documents, analytics, conversations about your event or about the people that are coming to your event, and get opinions from it on what you should do to produce a better event or to engage in the event in a way that's going to be more meaningful and push your agenda forward the way you want.
Absolutely.
So
I
Yeah,
love the
yeah.
application, the fact that you can talk to your documents and then grasp insights that otherwise I would take either a lot of research or a lot of time spent in comparison mode versus it's there, it's done. And I feel like for event professionals, event marketing, that it's an amazing tool that not a lot of event professionals actually taking advantage of. And I love that you mention it. Now, because I'd like to get kind of like with the beginning, because we jumped straight into and
Yeah,
we're like
right.
going fast, right? If you're new at AI, and I'm sure you have a few ideas, a few tips on what are some of the foundational steps that you should first take before we even talk about tools and what we should incorporate into our
Oh,
event strategy.
that's a really, really good question, actually. And I didn't answer the other part, the mundane side of things, right? Your first question, which has to do with workflow automation. Because the first side of this is just all these things that just give you, like what we were talking about before we started, right? The overwhelm of technology. On the other side, if you can automate your workflows using AI and workflow automation tools, then all of a sudden you're buying time back and sometimes huge amounts of time. But when it's about taking documents and summarizing them and using that for planning, that's much more kind of amorphous time that you use. It doesn't buy you back, it buys you back one chunk at a time, but not in a predictable way, right? The predictable meaning that I know I'm going to now, every Monday, I'm going to save 8 hours because this whole process now has been automated for me that I used to do every Monday. And those are the kinds of things that AI and workflow automation are just incredible at achieving when you realize that something can be automated. That's the thing. A lot of people get into this flow and pattern of doing their business and just assume that's just what you got to do. And how would I ever, without, I can't afford to hire somebody to help me with this. How am I going to offload this work in some way? And don't realize that a lot of it can be automated. I have an example of that, which I'll go into a little bit later, where I helped somebody exactly that get back 7 or 8 hours almost every single Monday of the year, which, if you add that up, that's an incredible amount of time.
Totally.
Uh,
I mean, it adds
but
up like nothing else. So let's talk about then, if we're doing that, we're talking about automation, what should be automated and what shouldn't be automated?
well, I don't know that what shouldn't be automated, but what should, I can tell you what should be. I'm trying to think if I've ever thought about what shouldn't be. Things shouldn't be automated if, well, I'm not
Well, I
even going
can
to go
think of
because as soon as I
I can
start
think
thinking
of
about
a
that, I think,
simple example like personal emails that maybe should take your thought process versus or LinkedIn responses. I was trying to use a tool to just automate some of the comments and responses. And to be honest, it
yeah,
backfired. And then I pulled back. I
yeah,
was like, you know what? I don't think that's the place where I want to automate that process. And that could
right.
be a process that I wouldn't want to automate. And I
But,
see people that do it on LinkedIn. And
mhm.
honestly, it's like it screams AI, it screams automation, it screams lack of
Well,
personal touch.
it probably doesn't scream AI in the right way, but
Right.
because you can automate that with AI where every single email is, every communication is on point and in context and appropriate. And the person that you're communicating with has no idea that it's not you. And you can make it in your voice so that it's not saying things that are just total lies either, right? It's communicating in the way that you would communicate with the person. And maybe it's also reaching out and reading posts that that person has put out and commenting on those in a realistic, cogent way and appropriate way that makes the person feel like you've read it, which again, it's one of those gets the conversation started
Hmm.
in a way that may be highly valuable to that person that you might not have been able to get the conversation started without that. So a lot of the automation tools like you're talking about are just continually spitting out the same kind of comments, or they make slight changes to each one based on very little information because they're not really pulling together all the things they need to make smart
Yeah.
decisions about how to communicate. But AI is capable of doing that. So you just have to have the workflow in place. And part of that workflow is you identify the person, you say, okay, they're the right kind of persona who I need to communicate with. You go out to their LinkedIn, you look to see if they're active and if they post, it goes out to social media and finds posts from that. and learns about the person on a little more personal level from anything social that's available, and then starts to build up and then comments on something that they're doing in a way that's appropriate and engaging to that person. And because it's just really good at writing, it writes it in a way that sounds like you if you're training it to use your voice.
Right.
So that is possible. So I don't know that it shouldn't be automated, but it shouldn't. That
It
stuff shouldn't
could
be automated
be.
if you're using the low hanging fruit tools
Exactly.
out.
So I think it
Yeah,
shouldn't be automated if you're not doing it right. I think that's where it should be at, because there's a lot of people that don't even know how to do all of those steps that you just mentioned, right? So they're
right.
just going to the first tool that they found that could automate some of those responses, and then you get these canned responses that sound like somebody didn't even pay any attention to what the actual context of that post
Mhm.
was. And that, to me, is a misuse of AI in the worst way possible, because you're not
Yeah,
creating engagement at that point. You're
you're
just
ruining your
going.
brand is what you're doing.
Exactly,
Yes, I
exactly.
know. Right. And I agree. I see those types of posts all the time, and I just ignore those people when I see an outreach, a
And you don't want to
connection
be
post,
that person that gets their
and I don't want to be that
reputation.
person. Right.
Exactly. So
No.
going to then what should be automated right off the bat, like as you're thinking of the event cycle and all the things that event planners do. And let me tell you, there's so much manual work. It just gets to be part of this process. What are some things that right off the bat you could say, hey, that should be automated? Here's an example. Here's a case study where we've done that. And like you said, we just saved several hours each day, which adds up to a tremendous amount of hours weekly, monthly, yearly.
So I'm going to give you two examples. One that I haven't done yet, but I'm planning, and they're both with the same person. The other one I did several years ago. So one's just a straight workflow automation example that didn't use AI to do it. And the one that I'm going to be doing for the same person in January, we're doing it with AI. It's a different workflow, but it's just as big a deal to this person. So this is a friend of mine who runs a business network. He has 1,500 members, and every Tuesday morning he has his what he calls a roundtable, and there's 70 people that show up for it. Half of them are on Zoom, the other half are live at his location, and it's about an hour and a half networking meeting where he does some business at the beginning and then he announces everybody one at a time, and he does it better than just about anybody I know. So everybody he announces, and these are a lot of these people are really serious business people. That's not like it was a BNR. I can't think of the name of that.
BNI, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. BNI. It's not like a BNI meeting where you've got like all the little local businesses, right? These are people from around the world. They're CEOs. They're all really interesting, smart people. And about 30% of them every week are guests. 30% are members that come twice or three times a year. And the rest are people that come kind of on a regular basis. So you're always getting new people. And he announces everybody like they're the most important person ever in their industry. And then you get 1 minute to basically talk about what you do, what you bring to the group, to people, and what you're hoping to get by being involved in the group, right? And you get a minute. And some of these connections you make in this are really important. So he's like a machine. He's been doing this for 11 years. He orchestrates these meetings in a really, really impressive way. But it takes him, how this all came up is I wanted to create a mobile app to make it better to consume for one of the members in the meeting to be able to consume all these people talking and make it easy to just make a connection on your phone by tapping on your phone. And now you can connect with that person and you don't have to remember who they were, make notes of it. Anyway, so I was trying to convince him that we needed to do this. And he kept saying, I just can't take on any more work. This is how the conversation went. I said, what do you mean? And I said, this won't add work. This is going to make your life easier. And he wouldn't even hear me. He said, anything that adds another minute to my Mondays, forget it. I can't even consider it. And so I pushed my document aside and I said, okay, tell me about your Mondays. And he proceeded to tell me that his Mondays, he spends 7 hours roughly, sometimes 6, sometimes 8, every Monday getting ready for his meeting on Tuesday. He's a super dedicated, disciplined person.
Sounds very
You know,
detail oriented too.
very, yeah. And he's got a ticketing system because you're a member and you also buy tickets when you go to the events. And so he has to bring in those. He has to then match that with the member profiles and bring in the descriptions. He has to then bring in the guests that are coming in. They asked to organize them in a certain way so that you don't have somebody who's a real estate investor, then the next person gets up to talk to real estate, things like that. And plus, he has his two or three different places where he has announcements and videos that he runs. And so it's a whole orchestration, and the phone's ringing while this is going on. So 7 hours, he starts like at 8 in the morning on a Monday, and it's like full day of work before he's finally got it all organized. So I said, okay, why don't we automate this? And he says, wow, how can you automate this? This is just so much in my of nuance and decisions I have to make. And I said, let's just work on it. You have nothing to lose except a little bit more time that you can't afford. Showing me how you do all this stuff. And I was doing this as just a hobby project because I run a software company. I don't get to write code very often anymore, and I love to write code. So this was just sort of fun for me to help him out. So he tells me what his requirements are, right? And this is what I do, and here's the sheets I use. They're all up in Google Sheets. And so we were going to do really easy automation. I was going to write Google Apps scripts, which is code that works with the Google stuff, like Google Sheets, Google Docs, and automate some of this and tie into his ticketing system. And so I get the requirements, come back in 3 weeks, and say, okay, take a look. Here's the system being automated. He said, oh, that there's no way I could use that. And I said, why not? He said, because it doesn't handle this, this, or this. And I said, well, you didn't tell me about this or that, but I get it. Yeah, and this is how it goes with workflow automation, because a lot of things we do, it's like DNA, right? We've been doing it so long, a certain way. We just know how to do it. But the idea of actually documenting this into a playbook or writing software that's going to handle it, it's almost scary because you just don't know all the things you need to know. Then you're going to turn the system on and it's not going to handle all the most critical things, and it's going to cause you to fail. And anyway, so I went back 2 weeks later, fixed this, this, and this. And then he said, well, you forgot about this case. And I said, no, I didn't forget about the case. You haven't told me about that case, but now I know. And this went on for 3 months. And this is really very typical, right? I'd laugh at him. And then he started laughing
Right,
every time
because
I
there's
gave
like
him.
no processes in place. All there is a lot of tribal knowledge.
It's tribal, exactly. It's tribal knowledge, but it is tribal knowledge like he knew every single nuance and every little twist, right? But he only knew it when he saw it. When he saw it needed to be addressed and wasn't it? So it took 3 months. I mean, not 3 months of my time. I probably spent maybe 50, 60 hours total. I'm writing code, not AI,
Right, you're
maybe
just
70
waiting for
hours.
him to like share
Right.
some more
And
of those processes as they
right.
come to his mind.
Exactly. They just sort of drip out of him, is what would happen. Finally, 3 months later, he says, I think this will work. So we ran it in parallel with his manual process one Monday. Then he ran it all on this the following Monday, and it
So was
worked.
this
And
kind
then,
of built, so I better understand, kind of like
yeah,
you created almost like a chat bot type of solution for him, or was
no,
there
no,
an
no.
input, or what exactly was
No,
the actual
this was a Google sheet that
Mhm.
he would take. I mean, he was very careful because this is his member list, which he has also on a spreadsheet on his
So his
computer.
entire CRM is there, but there's a lot of nuances to
Right.
it.
So he would take that spreadsheet of all the members and all their detail, and he would copy that up, and I would have him copy it up into Google Sheet every week and into a Google Sheet. And I gave him a very simple way of doing it. We click a button and it pulls it all up. And then he would go to the sheet that I created for him, and it had some menus that were custom menus, and he would run step one, step two, step three.
Mhm.
Step one would pull in everything from his ticketing system into the list. And then it would get rid of certain rows, put row headers because this is the way he's used to seeing it, and
Mhm.
then set it kind of up the way he wanted. Then step two would pull it all in from his match with the members and their descriptions, and then pull it in. Anyway, it was like this. And there was like 4 different places to had to grab things from, and then keep organizing the sheet. And then finally it would be all listed in the right order. Things are color coded, whether they're a member or the guest and things like that. And whether they're in person or whether they're coming in the online session. And now it takes him 10 minutes to do his Mondays, not 8 hours.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing.
that's the big deal about this. When you find something that you just have been, now he doesn't have to do that anymore,
Yeah.
right?
So I have a,
So,
a similar
yeah,
example, David, I want to share with you that I was having this
sure.
conversation literally last week or the week before with the head of programming at South by Southwest. You're
Mhm.
familiar with South by Southwest, and you
Oh
know
yeah,
how
sure.
many
Yeah,
events they put on every year. This conference
yeah,
that takes 1 week long has hundreds of events and activations and educational sessions and all the things that are
yeah.
happening during that 1 week. So the
That's
head of programming at South by Southwest was telling me how, because we were talking about AI and automation, and it was telling me how post South by Southwest in the past, like a couple of years ago, before AI and ChatGPT came on the surface, right? They used to take about 3 months every year post event to go individually through every single feedback form that they would have received. And they went individually. Their team of like 5, 6 people would go every form one by one. It would label it. They would take key takeaways. They would see what's something that's action items and categorize the whole thing and then
that's how they
act
got to
upon
be so
it.
big, right? Yeah.
They knew they needed 3 months to do that, and that's basically what they blocked their time to do. But then about in 2019, ChatGPT came on the market. They had this digital tech quiz that was an intern, and they asked him, it's like, is there any way where we can automate some of this process? Because all these forms, right, they're coming in through this Google spreadsheet, and we're going through each one of those. And is there a way to automate this process so we don't spend so much time doing all of this manually? And the skid goes programs, does something Python, well, learns what it needs to do. It's something that actually I learned how to do myself for the podcast itself with the intake form. I get a script out in like 1 minute, what it would have taken me an hour every single episode. And he basically creates this process like a kind of a custom private GPT for their internal system. And it takes all the forms, it labels them, it categorizes them, and then it pulls just the information that is relevant enough to be able to have some action taken upon. And what it would have taken them like those 3 months, now it takes them a week to go through everything that was already labeled, categorized, and put in the right containers to act upon what needs to be acted upon, to respond what needs to be responded versus what. And what now that you have now, right? 2.5 months saved of time. Now, what are
Oh
you going
yeah.
to do with this time? Are you going
And
to
it probably
invent
doesn't
more
take 6
manual
people.
processes to do? No, what they have invested now this time is to create better activations, to create better experiences, to
Right.
strategize, to look at, okay, we're seeing all this input. Maybe we should work more on this type of events or this type of activations.
Right.
Now, that to
Right.
me, in conjunction with the example that you just gave, that is the power of AI when you leverage it well.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. So going to my new project that I'm going to be doing for him, I'm starting my own podcast, as I mentioned to you, right? And he's a big podcaster. He has a live radio show. It's 200,000 listeners in the entrepreneur community, and he's like me. He's got quite a bit of reach, and he's a friend of mine. So I called him and I told him I was doing a podcast. I asked him what he thinks about it, the way I'm approaching it. He really liked a lot of it, and he pauses and he says, "I almost don't want to tell you this, but I have some of our members who take their podcast episodes and they send them to me, and then I distribute them through my network, which I think goes like to 30 or 40 different places.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get tons of reach they wouldn't get otherwise. And he's got like 7 or 8 members. He said, and I said, you didn't want to mention it to you? It's just so time consuming and it's such a pain to do. But I've really thought about not doing it, stopping it. And I said, David, doesn't this sound familiar? Just like before. He said, what? And I said, why don't we automate this? He said, oh no, I don't see how can you automate this? Is all these different you can automate this? I said, yeah, we can automate it, but it won't take me 3 months. It still may take me 3 months just to get all these little nuances out. But my actual work won't be 60 or 80 hours. It'll probably be like 3 hours now or 4 hours to do it. And
a repurposing of content and distributed across different networks that he's connected to.
it's getting the content. They have to fill out a form. They don't fill it out properly.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got to communicate with all that will go away. I mean, all that will be either automated or when they're filling out the form, we'll put in validation so that they can't not do it right. Or if they send up something in the file looks too small, send them back a message,
Right.
say, hey, you sure this is the whole file? This doesn't look right. Things like that. Or if they send the wrong kind of file, we just won't let them do that. And then being able to take it, add whatever the attributions that he does for all of the places where he distributes this, it'll automatically style it in the right way for the right outlet, and then push it out to each of those outlets, each in the way that each of those outlets requires it being pushed to them, right? Whatever the data is, whatever the media is, whatever the formats are, and automatically do all that for him. And so that he won't have to do it. Now, he could afford to hire a virtual assistant to have done all this for him as well. He just doesn't like to relinquish control because he's so detailed, and it has to just be done right. Right. But now it'll be done right. And if it's not, we fix it. And whatever's not being done right, it'll be done right exactly the way he wants. And he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. Now he can start to offer this to a lot more of his members that do podcasts instead of trying not to tell anybody about it.
And that can in itself become a service offering, part of this networking group that he's promoting, producing. So many different ways in which AI can be leveraged, and bringing our conversation back to aiding AI into events and event marketing. And I know you've been a champion for this for years. As we're
And how to
thinking
start.
about,
That was the
yes,
question you asked me before, how to start.
yeah.
If you're
How
just,
do you start? But then
yeah.
also, what are some ways once you start to then keep going? Because a lot of people, they're like, okay, I started, like I'm using ChatGPT. Now what?
So when they say they're using ChatGPT, what does that mean?
What they mean
So,
in most cases, probably they're just using it to write some copy or repurpose some content. Like that's a lot of the level that I was looking at a report that came out right now. And actually about 45% of the event professionals that were polled, they never even touched AI. And we're looking at an industry that
yes,
looks at innovation
yeah,
as a primary way of moving forward.
but they don't, except for they don't embrace it themselves.
Yeah.
So when people would say they are using ChatGPT, usually they're using it, they ask it questions because
They,
they want to know something, or they say, write this for me, or create an image for me, and things like that, right? That's what they do.
yeah, like
Uh,
rewrite this,
yeah,
I don't know, whatever shape or form, or
right,
prompt it in a way that basically repurposes a lot of the content, right? Like that's a lot
right,
of the usage that I see.
right. Then the next level would be people that say, write a plan for how I would approach this, right? A business plan or a marketing plan or an operations plan or whatever that is, right?
Research, analytics,
Yeah,
personalization, like next level.
right. But what people don't usually do, and I try to convince people to do this, or I try to tell people you need to start doing this, is ask it what you should be asking. That's where you start. And think and ask everything of all the time. Like, don't just occasionally remember to ask it a question. Think of it as a really good friend that you like are always on the phone. That's what you should think of ChatGPT, and ask it what kind of questions you should be asking. So I want to start an event about something for, give me an example, give me something. Like
Let's say we
you
have
want
a
to,
tech conference in San Francisco. We're going to put it in about 9 months. And now we're thinking about speakers, content, who are the right influencers, or the marketing that goes into that, and then sourcing those speakers, right? There's a lot that goes into an event.
oh yeah, right. Okay, so I would say, since I'm about to start, I should probably start planning this event, or maybe not. So I'm going to ask you, what are all the questions I should be asking and things I should be thinking about before I even start planning, right? And then it will produce a really smart list of questions and a lot of concepts that you should be considering and thinking about. And
I
then
would
ask it
add to
why.
that, David, if you're an expert in a specific domain, like you hold a domain expertise, you will realize, though, that within that construct, AI has limitations based on what we just started talking about in the beginning. What's being trained on, right? Like, for example, I run into this all the time because I write a lot of content on AV production that's very specific. That's
Mhm.
like my domain expertise. And I will tell you on how many times I had to give it thought leadership that it does not have, it does not possess, because
Mhm.
what's being trained on, it has a limit. Sure, there's a lot of blog posts out there, but you can tell when it hits that ceiling, right? When it's like,
Mhm.
That is not what I would advise an event planner to do. Like one example, what do you do if the AV is too expensive for your event? Well, bring your own equipment. I'm like, no event planner wants to bring their line arrays and
Right,
Lycos
of
and
course.
LED
Right.
screens. I'm like, what kind of advice is this?
Right. No, it's not good advice. And you can say one thing also. I don't know if you do this, if you say please and thank you when you're talking to them.
Of course, because we don't know what happens when the AI overloads will take over.
Well, that's the other reason for doing that, right? You want it to go, you were nice to me, so you can stay. No, but you would get better answers when you're polite and you're thoughtful in the way you write your question. You get much better answers. And there's now studies on that. I've been doing it from the beginning because I was just so appreciative of this tool. And people say, why are you asking putting please? I said, why not? I mean, I just really appreciate it. It's talking to me like a person, so why not be nice to it like a person? And
Exactly.
now it turns out you actually do. There are studies that show you get better results because think it's looking at the way you ask the question and thinking the type of answer it ought to be giving based on somebody who asks it in this way to be more meaningful answer. So regarding that though, like it gives you the wrong answer about AV, bring your own equipment, that sort of thing.
Go to
Uh,
Radio Shack. Wait, what?
right. But I don't know when you asked, that might have been even been a recent question, but it's getting smarter pretty fast.
It is, but
The
I'll
things
tell
that
you,
it
like,
does
because I
is very
built
good.
my own custom GPTs and I have a
Mhm.
series of them, and some are private, some are actually available for anyone to use. It still very much depends on a lot of domain expertise in certain specific
Yeah.
areas, right? So, going to the event planning that we just started, right? You, as the expert, you can ask it to tell you what should be the questions or the steps to follow, but then you also have input. So, where
Yeah.
you have your input, you should give it your input. That's something that, like, that's where I see this collaborative two-way street, where something that I might not know because I'm not thinking like from all points of view, but I also know what I know, and I will support you as we're having this conversation to
Right.
get me what I need or where I need to get the output that I'm looking for, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree, by the way. And plus, by giving it feedback, it does learn. It didn't used to learn from you very much, right? But now it learns a lot from you. And because it has a memory for your accounts. And it's going
If
to
you
just
have it
keep,
on, some people, they have
yeah, if
different
you have it on.
feelings.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I don't,
have different feelings about that.
yeah,
I personally prefer it. Like, I would
me
ask
too.
sometimes, have this like random cool fun questions that I would ask is like, okay, based on all the things that you know about, like, generate a picture of what you think my life looks like, and you'd be surprised how accurate that picture
Oh,
is. Or
that's a really interesting. I never
you
did
should
do
try
that.
and do that. Or
I'm going
another one
to.
that I
I'm a
liked,
little nervous to do that, but okay.
like for 2025, there's a lot of people that love to put out there like a word for the year, and I've always struggled with that because I'm like, I don't know what my word for year should be because there's so many things that go through my mind. So I went to my favorite person, ChatGPT, and I asked it, so based on all the things that you know about me, all the things that I've done in the last few years, because we have a history now, what should be the word that I should focus on in 2025? And it'll be so creepily accurate, right? And I'm
That
like,
is
oh my
so
gosh, that
interesting.
is something that's insightful. That is
I'm really glad
information
you're
that I
recording
would
this.
pay a lot of information to a psychologist who
Right. Or a
to
psychic,
a
right, depending
psychic
on
to
who you are.
get into my mind.
Oh, that's funny. I love that. Yeah, but you have to be using it a lot for
Yeah,
it to give you something back meaningful, or at least enough. Not even
exactly.
that much, probably, right? But at
I
least
mean,
enough. Yeah,
enough to actually have a bit of a, like I said, history, to have a bit of something to
right.
bounce or collect information. But even without a lot, I was surprised when I shared this in one of the communities that I'm part of, and people
Mhm.
that don't use it that much, they still were really surprised at the output that was quite accurate that we're getting. And again, those are people that don't interact with AI at the level that me and you would.
Right. So, but what I try to coach people on is to just be talking to ChatGPT or Claude, or if you like kind of the research approach, Perplexity or
Hmm.
Gemini, just talk to it all the time. Whatever's the most consumable, because they're all really pretty good at this point. And I use all of them for different reasons, depending on what I'm doing. And not that everybody should be using all of them. You can just use,
Right. And you shouldn't have paid accounts to all of them. But if you're using it as me and you, we use it heavily, like I'm totally okay with paying for ChatGPT Pro, for Perplexity Pro, and for Claude. Those are three that are kind of like my go-to for different reasons. And I
right.
get different outputs with the pro models versus if I just use the basic.
They're really consumable and they're very smart. Gemini is just not quite as consumable, right? That's the
I would
reason that,
agree.
because it's the same with me. Those are the three go-tos. I also have a number of AIs related to programming that I use.
Yeah.
So I've got one running right now building software for me. So with which that was not a thing. It was not a thing 2 years ago at all. And it was not worth bothering with a year ago. And it was
Mm-hmm.
barely functional 4 months ago. And now it's like I can actually build application, not just let it go and it's gonna build the whole thing. It takes a lot of feedback, but it's building the whole application where it would have taken been a team of people on my side. And it's not going to be a highly scalable application that I would put a million users onto. It would need to be rewritten. But by the time I've got that many users on it, it'll be able to rewrite it to be scalable in that way. And it's
Here's what I
amazing
like
how
to do,
quickly they
David.
are spinning. Yeah,
I would like to brainstorm a solution for what I see, especially in the event industry world, is a lot of challenge when it comes to the manual processes that we talked, right? Talked about a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of input forms, everything has to
right.
be consolidated post event, again very manually. And then on top of this information overload of where every document lives. And a lot of agencies would use maybe Microsoft SharePoint, or I don't know, Google Drive, or places where
Right.
they can
Yeah.
store in the cloud all this information, unless they're still
Mhm.
very much storing it on hard drives, which I don't know why you would. But like if you have a remote
People think
workforce.
that's safer and that's the craziest thing, right? Yeah.
Right. Like the problem that I see the most is the amount of time that people spend on trying to find the right documents to support their work. I was reading actually just a recent report that was put out by Asana, and they're talking about how in US alone we spend 9 hours every week finding the right documents to do your work, like the right
Yeah.
information to do your work. That's a lot of wasted time.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. So what's the brainstorming you want to do? What's the app?
Would be the solution right now that you can see with AI to consolidate some of this information, or maybe everyone that's struggling with working in silos, or maybe they have this SharePoint that acts like this major library where every time you go and look for something, the books get rearranged or they change their titles.
Oh, that's just nuts. Drives me nuts. Right. So, but you also, there's a mindset there that things have to be in an organization that you know how to get to it, right? The
Mhm.
path to get to the shelves and then where to go to get to the particular group of books, whatever that is, right? People
Well,
are comfortable.
hopefully it is organized enough in such manner. But what happens is, like, when you have a lot of people working within this construct, right? You would have documents that get uploaded to SharePoint. They live locally. They live in this place and that place. And then if it's not exactly the same file format, the naming convention that was said, hopefully, and established, then you end up with multiple documents that have the similar information or different information, but it's just named
Mhm.
differently. And again, going back to the overload.
Right. And that's a little more of a complex problem, especially if the documents are images or Photoshop files or things like that. And you have different versions of the same ones that you've saved in different ways, and you're looking for the most current version, or maybe you're not looking for the most current version, you're looking for the version where we did this blue hue in it, right? You're like driving yourself nuts trying to find that thing.
I think
Um,
one organization I was talking to that was like, it gave this perfect example of, like, they said, we host a lot of events and we upload all the content for those events to SharePoint. And every single one of those events has speakers and has their session title and the description, all of that, right? So it's categorized in a neatly form. What
right.
we would like to do is, now that we have this huge library of multiple years of events and multiple speakers, to go back in this library and easily chat with it, like ask it, was there a speaker that spoke on this topic, or who are the speakers that spoke on topic
Right.
XYZ, or who, like, when did we talk about this particular topic and at what event and in what context, like things that really
Or
you
what are
can
all the
draw
events,
is
or what are all the topics that have been spoken about, and
exactly.
organize it based on what the primary topic was and other kind of tangentially related topics that were mentioned in this conversation, and then tag everything. Just
Exactly.
start
That's
building the
insightful
tagging.
information, right?
Right. It is. Oh, yeah, very much. That's what I was going to say. The same thing, you could do it with design documents, but because they can be opened and the metadata pulled out of it and then structured and categorized. And like I might want to, and then I could search and then use AI to index all this stuff and say, what was that document that sort of had, or that design I did that kind of had the cloud in it, but it was a blue gradient, and there was also a cartoon character in the bottom left corner, and it would find it instantly. That's all you'd have to remember, right?
Yeah.
If it could had access to see the inside of the file and then index it and categorize all that stuff, because then it's effortless to find. One of the things I use it for that I found really early on, it's just brilliant at this, is giving me the name of the thing I'm trying to think about. When I
Mm.
can't think of what that is, like I'm a woodworker and I like to do a lot of handy stuff, right? And so there might be a weird, obscure part that from some old door mechanism, and it's a piece of it's missing, and I'm trying to rebuild the thing. And so, what's the name of that thing that goes right behind the metal plate where the latch comes out and it sort of pushes it, and it like knows what I'm asking, and it's a latch spacer or whatever it was. Like I said, can you give me links to more? And I give me links and I go, and that's exactly what I was looking for.
I would
Or
definitely could use that practical application when like the word doesn't come to my mind. I'm like, that thing that I'm thinking about, how come that you don't know what I'm thinking about?
right. And some of my descriptions are so lame of what the thing that is related to this other thing, and it knows what I'm asking it
I love
somehow.
it. Well, let me
Yeah,
tell you another example. I used it just the other day. I was actually driving and I have a new car, but as I'm driving out of nowhere, there's like three lights popping on my dashboard. I'm like, what the hell like just happened? Like I'm driving down the street. So
right,
I literally like maybe you shouldn't do that while you drive, but I'm like trying to be safe. I'm snapping a picture and I'm asking AI, it's like, what are those lights on my dashboard? And I
right.
promise you not, like in that moment, like I took the picture, it has computer vision,
Yeah,
right? It reads what that is, and it tells me, blah, 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 and I'm like, oh, I guess one is kind of urgent, has to do something with the ignition, with the key. I don't know. I think the
right.
battery went out or something in my brand new fob, right? The other one
Mhm.
had to do something with like weather outside, and then the sensors were covered or something, whatever, it was raining or something like that. But I'm like, right then and there, I'm like, oh, is this something urgent that I need to take my car in to the dealership, or something that can wait
Right.
or eventually go away, right? So that right then and there is like helpful to the next level, because
Yeah,
in the past I would have tried to find my manual and then try to go through the pages. What's that symbol and what does it mean in this manual?
right. Exactly. Or now with the ChatGPT came out with the video feature just in the last few days. And
Oh, I don't know
so,
if I
like,
have that. I have to look it
if
up.
you've
Is it
got the
on the
page,
app?
yeah, it's on the app. And then when you tap on the voice so that
Uh
you can
huh.
have a voice conversation, it'll
Yeah.
ask you if you want to turn your video on. And
Oh,
then it can see everything that's going
is
on.
it
It's a,
Apple on the iPhone or is it on Android too?
well, it's on Apple for sure. I don't know about
Okay, so
Android.
probably
Probably on
that's
both.
why. I'll have to check.
It might be on both. But how you looking at a blinking light on a device. And so now I can just tap it and say, what's this? And sometimes it's the color it's blinking, how fast it's blinking, and all those things mean it. And I can just tap it and say, what does this blinking mean? And it looks and it knows what the device is, and it can see what kind of color and blink, and it'll tell me exactly what it is. I
I
mean,
can't even
those are
explain to
huge.
you how many applications I can think about, even as we're in the context of
Mhm.
events and troubleshooting technology on the fly. You're like in the middle of this setup for an event, and there's like something popping up on your soundboard or your video switcher or your mobile app, and you're like, what is this? I haven't seen it before. I don't even know where to go and look for this. That assistant in your pocket right now, it's like it's
Yeah,
worth its weight in gold.
Right. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, it just changes so many things.
Here's the
So
thing
much
where I feel like
information.
me and you can
Yeah.
brainstorm so many different applications where
Oh,
we could
yeah.
use
Yeah.
AI. But let me tell you, what I see the struggle is within the event community, and I get to talk with event planners all the time, and our entire team of 300 something event planners, they struggle to see the applications, the practical applications. They struggle to see how can, like, okay, AI, how can it make my life easier? How can I use it in my daily workflow? How can I
Mhm.
apply it to what I do? And I mean, I feel like the biggest thing with this is like your imagination. That's the only
It's
limit.
also it's your orientation. Some people want to know what the rules are. They want to know what the steps are. And they're comfortable if they know what the rules, they know what the steps are, and they have an execute, and then they can execute on that because they know they're doing it right and they'll do it the same way every time and be
Mm-hmm.
just really happy with that. And I get that. I really do. It's a lot harder for somebody like my friend, Dave, with the network, right? And he's a very smart guy, but his smart has to do with how he just gets things all organized and get into
Right,
systems. And he's so comfortable in these systems because he knows they work and he just keeps
right.
working on systems until they work. And he generates a lot of money from his systems. But they are systems that are tried and true and they are very manual intensive. But that's not a problem for him except when he runs out of time. And then he struggles. So a lot of people are just like that. And they're not going to figure out how to really leverage this until somebody comes along and kind of hits them over the head with it, like I do with my friend, right? And says, why don't we automate that? You can automate that? And then shows them how or does it for them. And then they'll embrace that because now there's a new set of steps that they're following and they know they're comfortable. And that's a really valuable skill set. I wish I had more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to lean on my strengths, which are on the more creative and innovative side than the consistent execute. So I surround myself with people that have that execution capability. And now I've got tools like ChatGPT. So I've got one story early on with ChatGPT that to me kind of like just explains its value to me in a microcosm. So my wife and I, we moved to San Diego area a couple of years ago, and we're in our backyard. She's a vegetable gardener. She wants to grow all her own vegetables, right? And we have a pretty good sized backyard, no problem. She wants to know how many 4x4 raised beds we're going to need. And she asked me that question. I said, well, how about we ask ChatGPT? And she said,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been telling her about this for like 3 months
So
that
she
this came
starts
out.
chuckling.
So she's like, oh, of course, she rolls her eyes. And then her sister calls right then. And so she's on the phone with her sister for about 10 minutes talking about the move in her backyard and what she's planning on doing with the vegetables. And so I say to chat, I say, we're in our early 60s, we're both healthy, and we're not vegetarians, but we eat a lot of vegetables. And so, how many 4x4 beds would we need to be able to grow enough vegetables to completely feed us for all our vegetables for the year? And once, given that we live in in Vista, California, which is right by San Diego,
Right.
so given our climate, right? So it says how many beds. And I was like,
So I'm
okay,
going to
that's
highlight something there, David, because
sure.
that's like the prime way to prompt and prime any LLM out there if you want to
Mhm.
get a decent output. I think a lot of people go to
Context,
this one shot prompting and they say, how many 4x4s do I need to build a raised bed? And that's it.
right.
So ChatGPT goes, I'm like, I don't know, like a number like
Well, it'll come up
20.
with something, or it might ask questions or say, well, it depends on these factors.
Right.
You're
Well,
right.
you literally just primed it. So when your output comes back, you're going to get a solid output, or you can go back and say, well, how about modify it or something?
Well, so I had like a 7 or 8 minute conversation with ChatGPT about this. And then I said, okay, so what should we plant in each bed considering companion plants,
Right.
right? You want to grow certain things with other things because they like the soil together and other things
Right.
hate to be together.
Plus the
And
water
so,
distribution, all the things that go into gardening,
well,
which I
like
know a lot about.
onions, right, like onions and garlic or onions and lettuce. And I'm not a gardener, so I don't know, but
I
like
used
certain
to
things
over
grow
COVID and then
other
I
things,
gave
right?
up on it shortly
Yeah.
after.
So, and it tells me what to plant. And I said, okay, give me a schedule for what should I plant considering succession planting. Because when you harvest your onions, something, and now it's a different
Right.
season, you're going to put something in there. If you put the wrong thing, it won't grow because it doesn't like onion soil, right? But it loves other things do love onion soil. So you have to know what. So then it comes up with that. And I say, okay, how about companion flowers? And again, you want to put flowers along the edges of your bed. Certain flowers will draw away the bugs that would normally go like after your cucumbers. But if you put the wrong flower in there, it'll draw these bugs that'll go, oh, I like cucumbers even better. And you'll just destroy your vegetables, right? So the good companion, I said, okay, give me a schedule and put it in a table for all the beds based on seasonal planting. And it did. And it built the whole thing in like 7 minutes. We knew exactly what we needed to
And
plant.
then a shopping list
And
for Home Depot so you can go and shop
right,
for your
exactly.
tools.
So she gets off the phone and I said, take a look at this. She looked at it and she went, her mouth fell open. She looked at me. She looked at this. She said, that would have taken me days of research to figure this out. And I said,
Absolutely.
remember, I've been telling you about this. And it's like, can you print that? I said, of course I can print it. Anyway, so that's like,
No, that's a fantastic example because you just save yourself time. You're not, like you said, a gardener. You have had to go to so many different, I know, workshops, classes to learn all of this, the research on Google, right? To find
right,
out all of this information. And that's the beauty of it. Like, how you can do all of this in no time, get
right,
what you need. Now, the action part is now go and act upon it, do something with it.
right, of course. Yeah, it's always about go and do something about it. And we didn't even talk about startups, but
Oh my gosh, we
that's
need
a
another
whole
episode,
nother,
David. We need another episode just
I
on
know,
that.
right?
What I want to
Right.
wrap up with, because we definitely strayed a little bit from where the initial conversation was going to start with, but I really love that we got into so many different aspects of what it is to leverage AI. So let's just go back to, if you're an event professional who are new to AI, the fundamental stuff that you should start with, I guess, I feel like, is beginning by identifying where AI can make an immediate impact. So that would be automation of some of the repetitive tasks that you mentioned, scheduling, data collection, anything else that comes to mind.
Processing information. And that's probably number one for an event. If it's an event professional, they've got a lot of experience, they're really skilled, then automation would be really helpful. But it's all the information that they're having to process through
Mm-hmm.
emails, through forms, through all, right? And so being able
Yeah,
to process that information, organize it for you, and then surface the things that you need to respond to instead of you having to process it all to figure out what to do with all this information. And hopefully you don't miss the things that you need to respond to. So that's number one for somebody like an event professional who's just buried in information, right?
yeah,
While the event's getting ready, and then while the event's going on, and then the follow up to the event, right? What information should I be focusing on? Which groups should I be focusing on? How should I organize all this stuff? And all the information coming at me, parse it, use the AI to say, this is what's important right now. That's how an event professional should be using AI. And one of the ways you can do that is just by having it look at your emails and give you, like, you might get a long email from somebody that they're really important. Just paste it in ChatGPT to have it give you a summary. It's this, do I need to respond to this now, given who I am, right? If you've
yeah.
created enough context around it, you can just take that, put it in ChatGPT and say, what do I need to do about this today? And it may come back, say nothing, right? And then I don't
I'll
have to
give
even
you
read
one quick example here where how
that.
my emotional self can get the best of me, especially when I get an email that I feel like going keyboard heavy and keyboard happy on it. And I know that that's not the smartest thing to do. So in the past, I've done that
Keyboard
and I
happy, right?
regretted it, right?
You're just,
But now
yeah,
I can easily remove my emotional self from that by employing AI to respond to this email. And the response is polite and as it should be, and it gets
mhm.
to the point, and I don't have to feel like I had to go keyboard happy.
Yeah, right. The response you're
But
going to
also
get
the
from
job
AI,
is done and I can move
yeah,
on, remove myself
right,
from the situation,
right,
and not have to deal then with the implication of me having responded a little hot, and then now I
right,
have to go back and then fix it.
right. And that's actually a really good point because the email it will produce and the tone that it will produce it in will be that email that you would have written number four. If you read it and you left it for a day, come back and you rewrite it,
Exactly.
go read it for a day, right? And then on day 3 or 4, when you finally get to the real email that you should be writing, that's the email it's going to write the first time.
Yeah,
And
I
probably
saved
write
me
it
a
better,
lot of
and
grief.
probably write it better than you, right? And probably
Totally.
write
And I
it a little.
saved me a lot of grief from not having to put my passionate self into the mix. Sometimes it's better to just remove and just like do something else. That's not, you have someone else, the AI assistant that can help you and support that so you don't have to worry about it. I think that's a
Yeah.
fantastic way. Any other ways in which event professionals can leverage it? And then as we're looking into the future, especially 2025, I would like to wrap up with what are some maybe ways in which you see AI shaping the way we are going to be doing events or the way of the future events?
Well, quickly on the other ways, I don't know about the organizational part, but I know as an event goer, what I would love
Mm-hmm.
is that somebody understands enough about me from all the content that I produce and information they may get from intake forms and things like that, that they could produce a plan for me to engage the event, right? That is really tailored to me, where I look at it and go, these are all the things I would really want to be involved with. And yes, you're right. There's a round table and I want to meet all the, and instead of me having to try to figure out which are the right things to go to, which track should I be on, where are, and then put a plan together and where each of these things are with a little map. And I could do that very easily and customize it for all the different personas at an event really pretty easily. That would
So
be a
there's a
big
name.
deal.
There's a name for that. It's called hyper personalization at scale. And little do you
Mhm.
know, but Stevent actually is working on a roadmap to release that in 2025. And I just happen
Okay.
to have seen their plan. So it's something that a lot of event platforms have worked hard, talking about this AI matchmaking. But to your point, that is what every attendee craves, right? Because I'm not interested in
Right.
all speakers and all the topics. What I'm interested in, you should already know, because there's already information that I'm sharing with you. And there's also a profile that I already have publicly on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Instagram. And why do I have to do the work?
Right, right. Another one like that would be smart forms, right?
Mhm.
So where it's doing intake on me, but it's asking questions and dynamically generating those questions based on what it knows about me. And it goes and it says, okay, what's your LinkedIn? And then it goes out and checks my LinkedIn, and it's starting to now create questions, intake questions that are going to be valuable in the context of this event to know who I am. So how you would personalize, because that's the other side of it, right? It's going to personalize it. It could personalize it for the wrong persona that they're
It's
finding
true.
about me, because it's not doing any kind of deep analysis on individuals. And tools that do that are just amazing at how you feel like the person's known you your whole life when they reach out to you. Those are anything that can make an event feel like that. And then, of course, the number one thing would be I walk up to somebody and I have my glasses on that it gives me information about how to engage that person. Or walking around looking at booths, and now I know what if that booth is important to me in
Mhm.
context of what I want and what I do, and whether and what I want to go ask them about.
Yeah. So,
And
and
then
even within the context is, say they have 5 different people that are, with the booth, and I want to connect with the one person that is most relevant to me. Like just
right,
knowing who that person might be, so
yeah,
useful, because I might have more connection to this one person versus 4 of the other ones that are all there to do the same job.
right, right, and but you don't know which one, and then you also aren't even sure if you based on their title or anything like that. It may be based on other intangible factors that are very easy to parse out if you have all their social information available,
Yeah,
right? Anyway,
totally.
so yeah, those are the things that I think.
I like
Oh,
that.
and the future of events, nobody will ever have to park at one again.
Nobody
That's
will have to what?
ever park at an event, because
Park.
there won't because self-driving car. And literally, there's a prediction I have somewhere between 3 and 7 years, somewhere in there, be critical mass, and and parking garages, multi-story parking garages, and underground parking garages, they'll be empty because it'll be so much less expensive and so much safer. And the availability of these cars will be a minute or two, because because they're how prolific they are. Because people that do still own a Tesla or whatever, right, can just say, okay, my car's available, and now it's making me some money because it leaves my driveway and goes pick people up.
I was in Phoenix, Arizona, downtown, and I used the Waymo
Yeah.
self-driving cars. Let me tell you, it's a little creepy. It was just so weird to have that experience, to see how the car drives itself to the airport and I'm just there, the passenger. So I think you'll definitely take a bit of a mindset shift on that as well, because not everybody
Oh,
will be, as brave as some
I
of
think that
us.
it's gonna happen so fast. Remember when nobody would buy online because
It's true.
I'm never gonna buy online, or you're putting
Or
your
Amazon shipping.
you're putting
I
stuff
actually
right,
want to, buy stuff, clothes on Amazon that they never tried before.
right, right, exactly. That wasn't that long ago.
No.
Or I don't trust the cloud, right? Right. And so I've got my own servers and I'm putting everything on hard drives. And
All those
now
hard
people,
drives, they're all expired, and I don't even have the data cable that will connect to my computer because
right.
it's been like so many years ago.
When somebody is telling you that they're storing all their stuff on hard drives, you kind of look at them sideways. Are you okay?
I was
You
just
know,
talking to
you also
someone
have like
about
a
that.
cone, silver cone hat. And
Do you still have that phone that's like the brick phone?
yeah, it's going to be just like that with self-driving cars. Yeah, I've been in Waymos a few times in Phoenix, and the first time I just, they had a small area that they serviced, and so I just found a Waymo once I was in that area and took one for 5 or 10 minutes. I thought it was pretty cool. Then a couple months later, I was back in Phoenix. This was just a month ago, and now their area has expanded all the way to North Scottsdale, like 30 miles, and they'll pick you up right in the ride share at the airport and drop you off there, which they didn't do that 2 months before. So, and it
That's
was so
awesome.
nice going out to my mom's because she lives out there, and a 30-minute drive. They won't go on the freeways yet, but that's coming in another month or two. So it was a 30, 40-minute drive instead of 20 minutes to get there. But I'm in the back playing chess or checking my emails. It's really comfortable. I'm not paying any attention to the ride. It's very safe. I think it's very safe. I know I'm going to be an early adopter. I'm not going to be along with the mass, but it won't take long. And it was half the price of Uber. And that was without any competition. So once the critical mass is there, the price will come even farther down. And then it's going to be hard to justify wanting
There will
to keep
definitely
your
be a
car.
disruptor, right? I mean, Uber was a disruptor for the taxi industry. And
Yeah,
now here's another disruptor. And that's the way of technology. It will disrupt the way we do things. AI has disrupted the way we work and our workflows, and it will
right,
continue to be so. And to your point, being an early adopter, if you are not going to get on this train of AI and technology and the future that is upon us, you might end up like my mom. Like, it took my mom about like 10 years to just get her to be on an app and use the video function.
hmm,
And oh my gosh, and she lives on the other side of the world,
yeah,
and that's 10 years of wasted time of not seeing her face because she
yeah,
wouldn't get on an app because it was
mhm,
too hard, I don't understand it. And I'm like, how hard can it really be, right? So the more you stay behind and have this approach of like, I don't want to try it because it's too hard, the reality is the harder will be, as everything is
mhm.
moving at this pace and so fast.
It is. Or you could buy a geodesic dome and put it out in the middle of the Mojave Desert and have a well and be completely off the grid, right? And for people like that, then it won't matter. But for
Yeah.
everybody else, it's going to matter. So,
Yeah.
in my world, in technology, I look at it like this. You know, we're really good development team, right? And so most development teams are surfing. And I use the surfing metaphor because I'm in San Diego. Most of them are surfing 3, 4 foot waves, but we're surfing the 6 and 7 foot waves and paddling out when there's big 8 or 9 foot waves, right? And riding them pretty confidently and always pushing the envelope. And now here's this 100 foot rogue wave out there,
Hmm.
and then we can see it and it's just flowing in, and we can either just stare at it and it will just wipe us all away, or we can swim out to it, try to get it up on our boards out into this 100-foot wave and get on the very tip of our board and try to stay ahead of the curl. And that's how I look at AI. And if you're in an industry where AI is going to play a big role in software development, I can't think of too many industries that's going to play a bigger role. You've got to have that kind of mindset, or you're just going to not matter in another year or two.
Absolutely. Well, David, I know we're going to have to do another episode because we barely touched on some of the topics that we want to touch on.
I
And
know, right?
for everyone that's been listening all the way to this point, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more about the launch first method and the podcast that you're launching? Does it have a name?
Yes, Scaling Smarter.
Awesome.
And it's going to be for startups and scale ups, and talk about people that were successful and people that failed, and interview different people from different perspectives, talking about what makes successful startups, which of course, we ever talk about methodology, I have a lot of opinions about that. Not out of hubris, but out of hard knocks, how I've learned what I've learned. So that'd be a fun conversation. So you can find me on Scaling Smarter when that podcast is available in the next week or two, or reach out to me at techies.com, spelled TEKYZ.com, and you can email me at david@techies.com, or search me on LinkedIn, Hirschfeld, but Hirschfeld's a little harder to spell, so just look for me. Just search for Techies Inc. on LinkedIn, spelled TEKYZ.
Well, the good news, we'll also have all these links in the episode notes, and you'll be able to connect with David that way. I'm ready for part 2, so we're definitely gonna have to put on the books part 2, where we actually touch on some of the other topics that are equally as important and interesting that I would like to demystify with you, David. In the meantime, thank you.
Time box it, right? It's been 90 minutes.
Yes. Well, in the meantime, thank you so much for sharing all the things that you have shared with us today about events and AI and strategy and all the things to do and not to do, and automation. And I hope to see you again on another podcast episode and talk about startups in our next conversation. And then to everyone that's been listening, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, leave a review. It really helps us bring more impactful content to you. And until next time, stay curious, keep innovating, and keep creating unforgettable events. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Anka, and really enjoyed the conversation.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other professionals like yourself. If you're interested in learning more about TreeFan events, including our future AI education talks and workshops, or to see how we can support your next event, book a free 20-minute consultation through the link in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and social media for updates on future episodes, industry insights, AI news and tips, and more. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.
All right.